Welcome to the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network, a weekly broadcast sponsored by CVC Coaching, hosted each week by industry speaker, coach, author, and educator Jerry Eisenhower. Our presentations are produced to assist business owners and managers in turning their business dreams into their business realities. And now, here's your host, Jerry Eisenhower.
Hey, I want to thank you for joining us once again here at the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. This is sponsored every week by CVC Coaching. Be sure and check out our new online e-learning base camp, which is really allowing people to have an entirely new way to train. Well, the reason we do this podcast is every week we try to bring a new guest on that has value to share with our listeners. And I feel like this week I found a super guy. Never met the guy face to face. We've had some phone calls, but the thing is, where I heard about him was listening to him on some other podcasts, and some friends of mine that do the BCP show, Taylor Hill, Carter Harkins, they had told me about what a great guy he was. So I said, hey, I'm going to send out an invitation, see if he could join us today. So our guest today is a gentleman by the name of Tim Reed, and he comes all the way from Portland, Oregon. So he's on one side of the country, and I'm on the other side in my native North Carolina. And we're going to be talking all the way across the country. So first of all, Tim, are you out there with me today?
Hey, I'm here, man. Thanks so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
You got it, brother. And I appreciate you being here. And you got a really busy schedule, so we had to work this out. We'll work with your time, my time, because I just got off an airplane this morning from out in the Southwest. So anyway, Tim, let's start off a little bit. Tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, like you said, my name is Tim Reed. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I work for a company that's called Fireplace Home Solutions. We're up in the Pacific Northwest, and we've got showrooms in Portland and in Seattle, and we sell, fireplaces, wood stoves, everything that entails the hearth industry. And my role is basically to lead all 6 of our showrooms and go conquer new business and find easier ways, for customers to do business with us.
Hey, man, that's great. And also, I believe you started a podcast of your own out there and doing some public speaking and other things, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So about 4 weeks ago, we launched the Fire Time podcast, and it's available in the iTunes podcast catcher, and then for Apple or for Droid devices as well. And it's called the Fire Time podcast. Season 1 is 12 episodes with carefully selected guests from our industry to basically bring value to people wherever they are. So if you're a local installer, you'll get a ton of value from this. If you're a CEO or a VP of marketing or of sales, you're going to get value. We just wanted to have a well-rounded resource, kind of like what you're doing, Jerry, that's just going to benefit people in every walk of the industry.
Well, that's it. And so one of the things that's impressed me about Tim when I heard him, he's probably younger than my own kids are, but he was talking a lot about culture and hiring and training. And I feel like he can look at things that maybe some of our older guys don't look at as hard. So that was one of the reasons I pulled him in. So today, what I've asked him to talk about is I feel like that one of the most critical days for anyone to work for you is the first day. How do they come to work? And you set the stage for their entire career in that first day. So Tim, do you share my concern about that?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. So many companies don't take seriously training their people, and to drill it down even further, they don't take seriously enough how much that first day sets their trajectory for the course of that employee.
Right. And see, these are some of the things that we've done in studying younger generations. Well, a lot of people think that a word that starts with an M is a bad word. It's not a bad word. It's different generations. And we've studied this, and we do a lot of seminars and work with people because there are different ways that people learn because of the way they went to school. So let me ask you this, Tim. Is it hard this day and time? Do you hear a lot of people in our industry that feel like one of their biggest challenge is finding good people?
Yeah, that is tough. And across the board, most people that want a job have a job. That's not true everywhere, but it's difficult because in this climate right now, you're really going to be probably cherry picking from someone that already has a career. And so you need to present them an opportunity that is better than the career that they have. And it's not like we're in a position where there's people all over the place that are looking to get hired. We don't have that luxury right now.
No, it's a tough job market right now. That's the thing about a good economy. When the economy is good, and we've been through this before, this is not the first time I've seen this. I can remember this happening back in the 90s. We went through a very similar time that it was very hard to hire people. And to make it easy, it takes a recession. And I don't think you ever want to see that easy answer. So what we've got to do is build up. So we agree that we have this problem. You see it in Portland, Oregon. I see it in North Carolina. And like I said, I travel all over the United States, and it's the number one concern that people have. So let's start off with recruiting. You just said the key thing. I think you're going to be looking for somebody today that is gainfully employed. So you're actually going to be hiring people away from another place, and you've got to up your game. So what's some of the recruiting strategies that you feel that managers need to employ?
Well, I think the biggest thing about recruiting is that when you're recruiting, you have to prove to the potential candidate that you want to invest in them for their success. And I think that the method of recruiting doesn't matter as much. I mean, I've used everything from referrals of people I know to referrals of people that, other folks in my company know, to Craigslist ads, to headhunters. I mean, I'm not so concerned about that. What I am concerned about is whether it's in the phone screening, the job description, or in the interview questions, you have to come across that you want to invest in this person for them to win. And that's where we've seen huge success. Just to give you a little bit of a story, you asked if it's hard to find people, and I say yes, it is, but there's a little bit of an asterisk there, because while it is hard to find people, there are folks that could do amazing things for your company right under your nose. And just because they have a job right now doesn't mean you can't provide them a better opportunity. We have a guy that works for our company he's a young guy. And when he came on board 4 years ago, he was working at a candy shop, minimum wage. Someone came to me and said, hey, this is a high character guy. You got to bring him in. He's working a minimum wage candy job. So it doesn't take much to offer him a better opportunity and say we can invest in him. So he came on board, got trained up, spent some time in the warehouse, spent some time doing installations, doing a lot of things within the company, even some service work. He came on board my sales team 2.5 years ago. Within 2.5 years, this guy will sell more than $1 million by himself. And you think about it, where 4 years ago he was working at a candy store. But what we did is we came to him and said, we want to invest in you and we want you to win. Here's how we can do it. And he decided to go with that.
And I think that's very important what you just said, because in our research, a lot of people think it's all about compensation. And compensation is like number 5 on the list of what people are looking for. People are looking for a company they can go to work for that they can advance. They're looking for a company that has a word that we didn't even use 2 years ago, which is called culture. And about 2 years ago, all of a sudden, people started talking about culture. And if you research, studies on culture go all the way back in the 1950s. And I'm old enough to remember Dobie Gillis and the beatniks and all that of the 50s, and where our parents thought this world was going to hell in a handbasket, and it didn't. So that's what you're doing. It sounds like you gave him an opportunity to advance, and you got a guy doing $1 million in sales that was working in a candy store. That's pretty remarkable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jerry, to piggyback on what you said really quick about comp, is that comp is a factor. There's no way around it. And the reality is, if you have good people and you want to keep them, you need to pay them. But the beauty of that is there's a way to do comp structures. And I know that, CVC has all kinds of resources with this. There's a way to do comp structures that can help your team members grow as their contribution grows, whether that's in sales or installation or anything else. So comp is very, very important, but you're right. People want to be a part of a team that's winning, where they know that they're cared about, and that's where culture plays in.
Right. They want a company that can advance. They want to go to a higher level, and they want companies that care about them. And that's where it gets down to the culture, where you've got to have a culture that these people fit into and fit into well. Now, additional place we tried to stress to a lot of people is what we call the onboarding process. And the onboarding process, we feel, is critical. The onboarding is where we're bringing somebody, and when we bring them into work, we're not just throwing a warm body into the fray. We're bringing them in and we're going through what the company does. We're making them feel like they're a part of us, and we're explaining all the rules, the processes, everything the company is going through. Would you agree that is that the way that you feel they need to do it also, Tim?
100%.
So onboarding is something that you guys are into. Good. That's great, because I feel like you've got to be trained in how to onboard people into your company. And I see that often we put people and we put them with a worker in the company that's not skilled at training. And all of a sudden we've got something that's going downhill and the attitude is completely ruined. Have you ever seen that of someone in the company actually ruining new employees?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that companies have to take so seriously. I mean, in the past, I go back 13 years in this industry. I started as an installer for about 4 years, did some work as a service tech, went into a different sales role for another company here in Portland for about 5 years, and then I came into my current position about 5 years ago. And in that time, I've seen most companies don't put any thought into how they train their people. Someone shows up, and if they're an installer, they just put them in the truck with Jimmy, and hopefully Jimmy can teach them some things. Or if they're in sales, they just drop them on the sales floor. They don't intentionally think about the way they train their people, and they wonder why either A, their people get frustrated and leave, or B, their people develop bad habits. And it's like, well, is it any wonder you didn't invest into training them the way that benefits your company?
Yep, we're in agreement. So let's key on the retail salesperson. We've hired somebody to come into our retail environment, and is it something that you start them through the installation up to that? But if we were training a salesperson and this was their first day at work, what do you want to feel like they have accomplished at quitting time that first day, Tim?
I want them to feel like we believe in them and they can achieve their dreams with our company.
Okay. So what do you want them to know about product that first day?
Nothing.
Nothing. So you're spending that first day onboarding, get them inaugurated into what you do and where you're going. Okay. From that point, how do you train them?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. So rolling back to the first day, the way that our training process works is we take our first 30 days really seriously. And I joke with salespeople that, when they come on board, especially if they're from outside the industry, I tell them it's a 6 month to 2 year learning curve. And it doesn't mean that you can't get the basics to start having some success within the first 6 months, because you totally can. But it really can take a couple years to fully get a handle on things when everything is as technical as it is, because the reality is we have a set of rules that govern us, but the application of those rules is different every day. And there's nothing that can substitute a couple years of applying that to become an expert. So I default to them and say, look, when we invest in you, I'm making a 2 year investment. And what we're going to be going through is going to seem difficult at times. It's going to seem overly technical, but I'm doing this because I trust that 2 years from now, that investment is going to pay off. So I preface that. On day one, though, when we jump into it, what I'm trying to do as a leader is clarify expectations. On day one, if you don't clarify expectations of what is expected of them in their role, what does it look like to win, what does it look like to lose, and where do they go when they need help? If you can't clarify those expectations, you are putting them down a path of failure. The next thing is, in addition to clarifying those expectations, I want them to understand the ethos of the company that they're going to work for. So, if you give somebody an objective, but you don't give them context as to where they are and what their situation is, they're going to fail, or they're going to be a bull in a china shop, and maybe they'll get the objective, but there'll be a bunch of dead bodies to clean up behind them. We want to be radically clear in expectations, defining what winning looks like, defining what losing looks like, showing them where to get resources to help them, and then spending a lot of time on the culture of our company, the infrastructure of our company, and the overall ethos so that they understand what the ball game they're playing looks like.
One of my thought processes, Tim, and I profess a lot in the things I do and the writings I do and in articles and in books, is you have to inspect for what you expect. And you've also got to establish accountability. So when I say inspect for what you expect and accountability, How does Tim Reed do that in your operations? You're managing 6 different locations. So how do you inspect for what you expect, and how do you set this accountability?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jerry. Well, the first thing is that we're radically clear in defining our expectations. So again, everybody knows their goal on a yearly, quarterly, and monthly basis. Everybody knows their progress towards it. They understand the levers that they need to pull if they're behind on their goal, and then they understand how to continue to outpace their goal. So we're radically clear with that stuff. But getting really, really practical, what we do is we have a weekly meeting. And it comes from a book that's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, that's written by one of Stephen Covey's sons. And this book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, is just amazing in lining out a cadence of accountability to keep your team in line with the goals that you have. So we call it a WIG meeting. WIG stands for Wildly Important Goal. So of my 6 locations, we have 2 goals, no more. And those 2 goals are what we throw everything at. And if a situation comes up that's not in line with those goals, we will generally say no to it because it will distract us from our goal at hand. So every Tuesday morning, we have a WIG meeting where we go over how we're progressing towards this goal, what worked the previous week, what we need to do differently the following week, and we have a public scoreboard. And that's something I'd recommend for these companies. Is having a public scoreboard goes so far, especially with salespeople. If you put their numbers up on a scoreboard for the whole company to see, you will get instant improvement. And the behaviors that are on the scoreboard are the behaviors that will change.
Yeah. In meetings, one of the things that we work from is the EOS principle, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And that comes out of a book called Traction that a guy named Gino Wickman wrote. And E-Myth is another system that we believe in following. But meetings are critical. I think you just said a key thing. You've got to sit down. And I also love where you have the public board. What did you call that again now?
It's a public scoreboard.
The public scoreboard. So everybody's seeing their scores. So what all are you measuring on that public scoreboard?
Well, we measure a lot. And here's the difficulty with the scoreboard is the rule of the scoreboard is that it has to be all encompassing to be thorough enough to show the goals and every individual's progress and contribution towards them, but it needs to be simple enough that anybody can look at it and in 5 seconds or less know if you're winning or losing. The problem with a lot of scoreboards is that CEOs or presidents or managers make them, and sure, they have a lot of great data, but they're so complicated their sales team can't get behind it. So first of all, we have actually included the sales team in creating their own scoreboard, and that gets buy-in from them where they're playing their own game. But what we're looking at on that scoreboard is we're looking at total sales, comparing that to the percentage of their sales goal. We're comparing the amount of customers that they followed up with the previous month and tried to get referrals. We're following up with them on how many of their open quotes did they call and follow up with that week. Things like that are critical to the success of salespeople, because the thing is, and this is where the 4DX book is so good at outlining it, there are lead measures and lag measures. And so a lag measure would be what we tend to traditionally look at. Maybe it's your total sales in October, or maybe you have a goal of whatever margin you want to hit in the month of October. Well, by the time October is over and you figure out what margin you made, it's too late to do anything about it. The goal lags behind. So what we do is we take those lag goals, which are very important, whether it's a margin goal or a top line sales goal or a bottom line sales goal, but we break them into lead measures. And a lead measure is something that you can do in the moment that you have full control over, that you trust will move the needle on the lag measure. So to give you an example, if your lag measure was whatever X amount of sales in October, whether, whatever it is, 50,000, 150,000, $1 million, whatever your monthly sales for October is going to be, a good lead measure might be that we're going to try to quote 80% of the retail customers that come into the showroom, because that's controllable. If we set a quote goal of, hey, we're going to quote 20 customers this week, but we don't have control over that because we don't know if 20 customers are going to come into our showroom. But to make a goal that we're going to quote 80% of our customers, we can control that. And we're trusting that if we can quote 80% of our customers, that will move the needle in our sales goal for the month. Does that make sense, the difference between a lead and a lag measure?
Makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I just picked up was you've got a definite sales follow-up. That's what we call a drip system, where
Yep.
these things are automatic. So your people are, that's part, when no one's coming in, your guys are still selling by reaching out via email, via text, via phone call. What is the number one follow-up that's worked for y'all? Is it more email, or is it actual phone calls, or what works, Tim?
I don't think you can go wrong with a good old-fashioned phone call. Emails are great, text messages are great, but if you think about this, and this is where it's probably a different conversation, but in general, we just don't take our customers seriously enough. And we get this tunnel vision, and this happens as I've been speaking and going to different places in the country, as you go into a lot of dealerships, and you'll see a salesperson interact, and you'll ask them about it afterwards, and they'll say, oh, that person was just a looky-loo, or they were just kicking tires. And you think about it, and you say, well, wait a minute. So let's think about this. People buy fireplaces maybe every 20 years, and they, first of all, in their customer journey, they go to a manufacturer's website that confuses the heck out of them with all kinds of insider language and terminology. They're totally confused. So then they get in their car and they drive probably 30 minutes with traffic to find your business. And if your businesses are anything like mine, they're really difficult to find. Then they walk into your business after overcoming the confusing website, after overcoming the difficult to find location. They spend 45 minutes with your sales team listening to a product. Then they walk out the door with no proposal, and you tell me they're a looky-loo? No way, it doesn't exist. So what I say with that is that customers make an investment in us every time they walk in the showroom. In general, they're spending 30 minutes to an hour with our sales team. In that time, we should be getting to know them, building trust, building camaraderie, and it should be the most natural thing in the world to call that customer 3 days later and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, my name's Tim. It was so great talking to you a few days back in the showroom. I found out a piece of information that I think could be really helpful for your project. Would it be okay if I shared that with you? Who's going to say no to that?
Yep, that's it. So let me ask you this. When you and I got together, I shared with you my thought processes on what virtual training can do and how it can speed up the process. Since we talked initially, what's your thought on virtual training and how you use it in your business?
Well, I love it. And so I think what you're doing with the CVC online platform is incredible, because the reality is I just had to send some of my guys to a factory for some training. And so I had 2 guys put on a plane going out to the Midwest. I lost them for a week, and it was really, really, really expensive. I mean, you're talking multiple thousands of dollars when you think about the plane tickets, the travel, the lodging, the time lost, the wage, and then the sales that were lost during that week. So I'm a huge fan of online training. What we do as part of our rhythm is I am constantly sending out podcasts and videos and snippets and articles to my team for them to read during the week to come to our sales meetings with. But to drill down even further, if you have a platform like the CVC coaching platform, it is worth building a track for your employees so that they've got their next 5 classes in a row, and you can check in with them weekly to say, hey, from 9 to 10 in the morning on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you're going to hit CVC, and why don't we touch base at our next coaching meeting as to how that's going and what you're learning.
Right. And like I said, sometime, and the next step for you is to start building your own stuff inside the platform. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, that on the virtual platform, we've got people now building their in-house proprietary training. So it's accessible at any time. So as people get into virtual training, and here's one of the things we're finding out, people that are been in the business for a lot of years have a hard time adjusting to virtual training. But on the other side, we're seeing the people that are Generation X, which is a 35 to 55, some, but the under 35 millennial, this is how they went to school, and they are learning very rapidly. We're seeing people get certification within the shortest length of time. I never would have imagined it. And
Yep.
two years ago, if somebody said, Jerry, you're going to be doing online training and that's how you're going to be adapting over, I thought it was crazy. I sit here some days and watch hundreds of people in our platform simultaneously learning, collecting CEUs and all that kind of stuff. So virtual is going to be the future. And you just said the key thing. We actually ran the numbers, Tim, and to send someone like a technician that you've shut them down, we've come up, that's a cost between $2,000 and $3,000 a day when you look at
Easy, and way more if they're in sales, way more.
Correct. So you've lost their sales potential. You have spent the money to send them. And if you can deliver this right in there and set a system up And that's what we're trying to build here. So, one of the things is Tim's agreed to do some training and present some classes on here as we build up our retail side of this even more. So I'm looking forward and, showing you how you can use this more and more with all your operations out there. So it's doing good. So let me ask you this. What would be your parting words? What would you tell this industry? What's the potential? Where's the future at here, brother? Because guys like you are the future.
Jerry, this is what I think. I've been doing this for 13 years, and I'm so humbled by that. There's just amazing people that have come before me and have built this industry to be what it is. But what got us here will not get us to the next step. And I think what is killing our industry and simultaneously what is the biggest piece of opportunity in front of us is this. We make life so difficult for our customers. We make it so difficult. You think about the customer journey. It starts with them going to a manufacturer's website that's completely confusing. I went to a major manufacturer's website the other day, and it talks about 40,000 BTUs, amazing turndown rate, key features, and it's talking about, intermittent pilot ignition systems and all this stuff. And I'm just imagining it doesn't mean anything to a customer, but that's what they get blasted with on the website. Then they go drive to a dealer. Many dealers are asking questions that customers don't know the answer to. I secret shop usually every 4 weeks or so in a lot of different markets around the Pacific Northwest. And almost every time I walk into a new shop that I'm going to be taking a look at, the people come up to me and the first question they ask me is, do you need an insert or do you have a built-in? As a consumer, consumer has no qualification to answer that question, but we use insider language and terminology because it makes sense to us. So we make it really difficult for customers on the web. We make it really difficult when they come to the showroom floor. And then half the time when the customer comes in, they get sent out of the store, not with a proposal, but with a business card stapled to a brochure. And maybe they get 3 more business cards for the framer, for the electrician, for the installer. And the company says, well, hey, give me a call back when all this is complete, and then I'll sell you your fireplace. And we're used to this because it's the way things have always been done. But in today's world of Amazon and Uber, they have set the bar for all of the rest of us, and we're being judged by their criteria. And so you wonder why at the national level, the incident rate of fireplaces is falling. Well, I think a lot of that has to do with just life being made very difficult for customers, for builders, and for everybody else. So with all that said, we make life very difficult for customers, but there's good news. If we can sell as much as we can while making it difficult for customers, what kind of ridiculous opportunity is out there if we can make it easy for them? So I would encourage everyone that's listening to this to think through the customer journey and think about what your business contributes to it. And it should be your company's goal to make it so stupidly easy to do business with you that there's no excuse not to. So in everything you do, in every part of the sales process, if you would normally hand out a card for an electrician, don't do it. Call the electrician and get the bid beforehand. Then let the customer know what the bid is. If they're going to go to your website, remove all of that insider language from your website. Don't talk about BTUs. Don't talk about direct vent or zero clearance, but put things in the terms of the customer. And we have found ridiculous success. And we're still a work in progress with this. We don't have it figured out, but we have found ridiculous success in changing everything we do to make it easy for the consumer to buy from us.
Those are some wise words, my friend, and that's what people have got to do. That's what's happening. People are scared of e-commerce. The reason e-commerce sells to them is it's easy.
That's right.
And you just said the key thing. We've got to make it easy to do business with us. We got to figure out ways to do business with our websites better, where we, and all these things. I can remember when everybody thought that, website sales, e-commerce, that was some strange company. The reason people go to e-commerce, it's easier. It's like, when I went through Gittimer sales coach training, one of the things they said there was that people commonly go to a bookstore and they're looking at books and then they go and they order them off of Amazon. And somebody says, well, because it's cheaper. No, it's not cheaper. It's easier than going to that cash register and giving all this information. I could have ordered it on my Amazon Prime account, and it's probably going to be at my house in 3 or 4 hours.
Yep.
Because I got a great big Prime. We got a gigantic Amazon Fulfillment Center sitting about 15 minutes from my house.
Yep.
Well, Tim, this has been great, brother. I'm looking forward to when we can get some classes up for you on our platform and all that. And I appreciate you taking the time out today, brother. I hope
Hey,
you can
thanks,
do it again
Jerry.
with me.
It is my pleasure to be here. And for anyone listening, check out the Fire Time podcast. It's available for Apple devices and Droid devices. And I think it's going to pair very, very well with everything that Jerry's doing. So you guys are blessed to have this guy creating content for you.
There you go. Well, I appreciate the heck out of that, Tim. And this is Jerry Eisenhower with CBC Coaching, and this has been the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And like I said, what we concentrate on is bringing you great information from great guests, just like my friend Tim Reed here today. So check out our virtual learning platform. It's got a 2-week guarantee of value. You try it for 2 weeks. Hey, if it doesn't work, we're going to refund your money. And I can't give much more of a guarantee than that. And to date, we haven't refunded the first person's money. Everybody finds it's a phenomenal value. So join us next week here on the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. This is Jerry Eisenhower, and we're out of here.
Thanks for joining us here each week at the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network, sponsored by CBC Coaching, providing you the coaching and educational outreach services you need to move to your dream destination.